I was raised fundamentalist, and a lot of what I was taught about the holiness of God requires from us still scares and confuses me. What is the holiness that God desires for us? Well, first of all, let me say to this person, I am so sorry that you have the feelings of being afraid about holiness. And I want to go ahead and add that last week in our pastors' meeting, which Pastor Andy has with us every single Wednesday, we began to talk about how we grew up. What was our early life like in our own homes, and what was our view of God? And just with your pastors, it was amazing how differently each one of us grew up, from having no God actually in the home, meaning Pastor Andy did not grow up with Jesus in his home, to ones that grew up in a very strict denomination. We're just a hodgepodge of everything. So I can understand your feelings on this question. I think the way that I would like to answer it is to first talk about God's grace. And whoever you are, you need to know that before you even knew God, you were covered in His grace. And we Methodists call that prevenient grace. Pre meaning coming before. And then on the day that you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, that became justifying grace. Think of justifying like on a computer or a typewriter. You got it lined up. You're lined up with Jesus. And then after that is what we Methodists call sanctifying grace, and that means going on to holiness. Going on to holiness. How do we go on to holiness? I think that since Jesus is holy, we need to be holy too. And we do that one step at a time, and it's a journey. It's a journey every single day. We see Jesus reading the scriptures and praying and having compassion on people and loving those that are downtrodden. We see Jesus fasting. We see Jesus doing all of these things. And every single step of the way makes us a more holy person. Do we have times when we're unholy? I certainly do. A lot of times. But again, it is a journey, and we don't need to be afraid, because God's grace is just absolutely encompassing all of us. I hope that you will come to a pastor and talk to a pastor about that and begin to work through it, because we do not need to go through this journey alone and scared.
I would just add that I think the way that we grow up, which you totally pointed to, but the way that we grow up really does influence the way that we think about God. It influences the way that we think about God often throughout the rest of our lives. But that we continue to, with sanctifying grace and with the things that we do, we continue to grow into the holiness that God does desire for us. And we grow into an understanding of that grace that you beautifully articulated.
And one of the ways I think about this is that I think the derivation of the word holy means set apart. And on a daily basis, we are setting apart ourselves for God. Jesus taught about His kingdom, and what He was talking about is living within God's grace. And each day, each moment of our lives, as we make a decision to set ourselves apart for the one who loves us, we are becoming more holy. And it's not something to be afraid of. It's a decision we make moment by moment to be part of Him who loves us.